I love seeing people's photos on Instagram. It's a great way of keeping in touch. But isn't it amazing how Instagram knows I need that new cool pair of shoes or that gadget? I just can't do without it. And how quickly I click the order button. I know my life is just going to be better with the right gear. Then I found myself thinking about your holiday pics of the places I haven't been, or your photogenic family, or your latest meal out. So I plan my own filtered and touched up pictures. I crop out the messy bits. I show you the highlights of my life, the new car or the fashion accessory. And I end up making you as discontented with your life as you have made me with mine. If you find yourself envious of what others have, of who they are or what they achieve, then keep listening. We're going to explore how to say no to that emotion that competes to control us, envy. We all experience emotions that compete for control of our lives and our mouths, because what's inside us, the ugly things we don't like about ourselves, keep popping out. How often have you said, I didn't mean to say that, I didn't mean to do that. Where did that come from? Jesus tells us exactly where those hurtful or critical or angry comments come from. The things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart come evil thoughts. We daren't allow the ugly things lurking within our hearts to seize control of our lives and our mouths. And envy or jealousy is one of the ugliest things in our human nature. When you and I strive to be cool or successful, we end up competing with other people who don't even know there's a competition. Do you find yourself doing that? We either feel like we're winning compared to others, which ends up making us arrogant, or we're discouraged because we judge ourselves to be losing. We might not like to admit it, but we might even find ourselves secretly rejoicing when someone else fails, because it makes us look better. Solomon, the ancient king of Israel, who was world famous for his wisdom, didn't hold back when he said this: envy rots the bones. Envy says, I want what you have, then I'd be happy. Jealousy goes a bit further and says, I rightfully deserve what you have. So if we let those emotions rule us, over time, it could make us physically and emotionally ill. Envy leads to resentment, which ruins relationships. I'm not going to be a very good friend if I feel resentful about your possessions or success. And then if I let it, resentment gnaws away at me inside, and it can be a springboard to anger and hatred and even depression. Jealousy destroys. So it's obvious, we need to quit being envious. If only it was that easy. Our tendency to compare ourselves with others is natural, but it doesn't need to control us or drive us. Wise Solomon shows us a way forward when we find our emotions drifting towards envy or discontent, and he gives us a word picture that I find really helpful. The man who literally had everything wrote, I saw that all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another. 3,000 years ago, it was just like today. Everyone was competing, measuring their own success by the success of others. This too is meaningless, says Solomon. It's ridiculous. It's a chasing after the wind. What a picture. Can you ever catch up with the wind? It's endless. There's no finishing line, no winner, and there's no peace. Because his is always newer, hers is nicer, theirs is bigger or faster or smarter. There's no contentment. If envy is the boss of me, dissatisfaction is guaranteed. My friend recently got a home extension and a shiny new kitchen, and I rejoiced with her. But when I got home, all I could see were the inadequacies of my own kitchen. I started redesigning it in my mind, and I battled with those feelings until I realised that if I let it, envy will steal my joy in what I have, and I'll no longer be content. Envy will also steal the joy from our accomplishments if we let it, because someone else has always done better than us. So when you find yourself comparing, tell yourself, envy, you're not my boss. That's chasing the wind. It's a waste of my time. I will not waste my life chasing the wind. On the other hand, this isn't an invitation to idleness or apathy. Solomon accomplished great things in his lifetime. He got things done and he did things well. So he's not saying be lazy. He's not saying don't bother trying. Fools fold their hands. They sit back. They take it easy and they ruin themselves. Doing nothing, being unproductive isn't the answer. That's the other extreme. Solomon continues, better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Better doing what you were designed to do, what you were created for, and being contented or satisfied because you did your best. Better to have peace because you're not trying to be someone else. Better is one handful with tranquility than grasping, pretending, cropping and retaking. Trying to keep up with others will stress you out and you'll never manage it. Less is more when it leads to contentment. So what is it that sows discontent in you? Is it social media, a website or a glossy magazine? If something is feeding that ugliness inside, if it's feeding your envy, then maybe it's time to take a break from it. Put it down. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. Solomon saw something ridiculous. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. He had no one to leave his stuff to, as women couldn't inherit property in that culture. There was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. He had plenty of stuff, but it was never enough. He finally asked himself a key question, a question some of us have never asked ourselves. For whom am I toiling? Why am I doing all this? What am I trying to prove? Am I competing with a parent, trying to go one better, or with a sibling? Or am I wanting someone's approval and they don't even know it? For whom am I toiling, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? The man couldn't press pause to rest, to enjoy what he had. And he didn't know why. Perhaps you're ambitious, you love working, you're toiling for your family, but you're so driven, so time poor, that you're alienating the people you say you're working for. This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Envy and comparison may be driving you, and it will make you miserable. You'll never be who you were born to be as long as you're looking over your shoulder at everyone else. And if you're a Christian, it's more serious than that. You'll never experience God's purpose for your life while you're distracted by what He's doing in someone else's life. Some members of my family are high achievers in business and in public service. One was awarded an OBE this year. And sometimes I do the comparison thing and I come up short every time. It makes me question what I'm doing with my life. I feel inadequate. I'm still figuring it out. I have to remind myself, envy and comparison, you're not the boss of me. Life is not a competition. Here's the first part of Solomon's proverb about envy rotting the bones. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. You can't compare or compete your way to peace. You can't win chasing the wind. Envy will rob you of peace. If you're following Jesus, God has given you a race to run. As a parent, a teacher, an athlete, a student, a mentor, an employee, a carer, or running a business. He wants you and I to get in our lane and thrive there, change somebody's world from where we are. But if I let envy and comparison be the boss of me, if I swerve into another lane, looking around me at what others have or are, I quit being concerned and compassionate for others, because envy makes me self-centered. There is a time, though, to look at other people for inspiration, not for imitation. When I see a life that's driven by a desire to serve, by love for people, it really is inspiring and it motivates me to run faster in my own lane. But I don't need to compare myself with their personality or their achievements. For example, I can't copy our youth pastor Jamie's energy or extrovert nature, but I can be inspired by his enthusiasm, by his love for God and his love for people. I can be inspired to use my own gifts to benefit others. Your gran probably told you to count your blessings. She meant count your own blessings, not your neighbour's. You'll never experience life to the full until you decide to fully embrace the life in front of you. Be all that you can be and all that God has called you to be. Give up trying to be someone else. Give up counting yourself a failure because of what you're not or don't have. So when your mind drifts and you're tempted to compare, stop yourself and say out loud if you need to, "Envy, you're not the boss of me. I will not chase the wind." So are we really never allowed to compare? Jordan Peterson said, if you really want to compare, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Looking back, comparing who you are today with your younger self can help measure your progress, and hopefully you'll see positive change. Maybe not physically, but in your character. If not, if it's the same old you and maybe a bit grumpier with age, then it's time to pursue progress, to work on being your best self. But even better than that, if you're a Jesus follower, compare yourself with him and with his character. Jesus wasn't distracted by envy, by what his peers had acquired or done. He didn't compare himself with those around him. At every stage of his life, he gave his best. He pursued God's purpose for him. He loved those around him. He was a man whose heart was at peace. He didn't chase the wind. If you're a Jesus follower, you already have a boss, and his message is clear. Don't compare yourself to one another. Love each other, and that's the key. We're to love, celebrate, cheer for, care for, and be there for one another. And we can't do that if we're constantly comparing, if we're jealous of one another. Envy always gets in the way of love because it's self-centered. You can't do both well. Is it possible that envy has become the boss of you without you noticing it? Is it driving you? Maybe in one area of your life, in one relationship or environment? Does envy cause you to be dissatisfied? It may be someone else's kitchen or car or job or success, their personality or relationship that turns your head in the wrong direction and you're off, chasing the wind. You're discontented. Don't chase the wind. Don't let envy be your driving force. It's meaningless. It's ridiculous. When you're tempted to compare, declare, "Envy, you're not the boss of me." Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing the wind.